Right. So from an digital agency perspective, Joe, like we are talking with potential clients and existing clients about building an experimentation practice. Like you're often a part of these conversations. What is kind of the general feedback that we're getting from our clients, and is there pushback or hesitance, or are they super excited, or what are you seeing out there?
I think we see more than anything else a lot of, so number one, there's different levels of what I'll call maturity in terms of what teams are implementing it in terms of process. I think at the base level, and you'll see probably more of this than any other, you have teams that, again, were sold this really fantastic tool and then either haven't put the processes in place or taken the resources to really use it. So it's either kind of like turned on and not doing anything, or maybe turned on and not being used to its full potential. So there's definitely that, which, I mean, the upside is that the tool's there. It's just a matter of getting the processes in place. I think you also see a lot of teams that aren't always sure, again, what they're trying to get out of that. But the most effective teams, the one that kind of have that fully realized process, they're doing some type of essentially optimization cycle. So, okay, it's not a question of like, are we running an experiment this month? It's what experiment are we running? And really thinking in terms of data. Like I love what Tommy said about like kind of putting the accountability back on your teams to kind of work that into how they think. Because that's really that feedback cycle is what's kind of creating that virtuous cycle, that flywheel that's going to really drive things and get you those enhanced results, where the team is really looking at what they're doing and then trying to tune as a result of that. And I think just always testing assumptions is the other thing that is really mature. So Tawny mentioned using some kind of like machine learning tools to help provide recommendations, which again, will be sold as like, okay, now this solves your resource manpower problem to do this. But one of the things that we've done for some of our clients is when we use those machine learning recommendations, we actually, so Optimizely provides content recommendations, which does that. They also provide a feature experimentation tool, and we make those tools turn on each other essentially. So we say, okay, we're going to implement content recommendations, but we're also going to A/B test that against editorial select to see if the editors are making better recommendations generally than the content recommendation system is on a one-to-one basis. So I think really just having that scientist approach of like, I'm going to make a hypothesis, test, measure, and then do the whole thing again on the next cycle is the real key.
Right. So Tawny, do you have something to add to that?
I was just going to say, I think oftentimes, right, when you're just starting out this culture of experimentation, if you're in the infancy or you have a really small team, I think it's about finding the right partner, someone who has experience in doing it and walking through. The concept itself can be so overwhelming because you can go any direction with it. But that also helps as you sell this to, your executives or anyone else, somebody who can come in and say, look, if we test X, Y, and Z, it might take a minute, but we're going to figure out how to work through this problem. And then that's optimized for the better. We can circle back to it, but we can also test other things. I also think what Joe just said is super key. There's never enough hours in the day for content production or getting enough out there. So leveraging a learning from over here and utilizing it here is, again, when I go back to how do we build capacity, how do we leverage this somewhere else to streamline and create more efficiency on the back end is huge.
Yeah, and I think when you mentioned finding a partner, I mean, obviously as an agency, maybe I'm a little biased here, but I think it's helpful if you've got somebody that has worked in the verticals you've worked in, that you're working in, so you can say, oh, I've seen other libraries do this that's helped. I've seen other banks do this that's helped, that has that experience. And that's one of the advantages that we can come in and help stand up those situations, because if you're working at a coffee shop, you're building one coffee shop website this year, we might have built 5. So having that can kind of kickstart that cycle and say, well, what if you tried this, and bring those ideas in. And then after you see those experiments start to grow, you start to get a better idea of, okay, specifically for me, this is what we're seeing work, so we can do more of that.
Yeah, it's automatic benchmarking, right, against your
Mhm.
peers. And oftentimes you don't have that.